Hello, everybody. I am here with Dan Schultz, who is the founder of what's called Precinct Strategy. One of the things we've been talking about before we started this recording is how frustrating it is to get people to get out and do the work. And he Dan was saying, you were saying to me how things really need to be. It's like, how bad do things really need to be? And I'm going to tell you that in Connecticut, they're pretty bad. We are the third highest tax state. We're basically run by a bunch of communists. We have our electric bills are through the roof because they use that as a taxation platform. And there's plenty of crime here, even though the governor says everything's hunky-dory. We have recently, I'm going to tell you what happened recently, is that we had our Connecticut GOP is incredibly ineffective and has absolutely ruined the reputation of the Republican Party in Connecticut because of this. And I'm sure it's deliberate action. So my co-host, who unfortunately Jason isn't here today, he had an emergency and he had to go up to Massachusetts. And so he decided he was going to do a Hail Mary run at the chairmanship of the GOP. And he had some people who were going to nominate him, and he had some people, somebody was going to second. And at the last minute, they swapped out the people who were going to at least put him forward for, they did proxy voting. So, so he's now questioning those rules and he's putting things forward to the RNC, and he sent a letter to, Mr. Watley. And so that's stuff that's all in progress. But we do have good people in Connecticut who want to be a part of this. They're a little scared, I'll admit. There are some very dark, ugly things happening here. We do have a political prisoner, at least one. There's more in this, the same category as Tina Peters. His name is John Flynn, and he is incarcerated right now in Whiting Forensic Hospital because he found some voter fraud. But what I want is I would love for you were telling me you were was it an extremist Republican or radical conservative?
Yeah.
What were the words you used?
Well, I mean, it's funny when Pat Buchanan was running for office a long time ago in Los Angeles. I was living in Los Angeles, and Gloria Allred, I don't know if she's even still alive. She's pretty old now. She's a left-wing attorney, and she had a radio talk show, and um, and she was calling Pat Buchanan a right-wing extremist when he was running for president, and he said. Well, I'm definitely right wing, and yes, I'm extreme in my views with respect to having the Constitution be followed. So in that case, yep, I'm a right wing extremist. It doesn't offend me for you to call me that. And I was listening while he was on the radio with her, and then I called in later and and mentioned that to her. You call everybody these names, but you think you're insulting us, but you're not really insulting us. And she didn't get it. Maybe she
Wow.
did. I don't know. But anyways,
What
yeah,
sense
I
of
said,
humor is there?
yeah, you asked me who I was, and I said, well, first off, I'm a right-wing extremist. So, now if any leftist watches this program, they're going, oh my God, Schultz said he was a right-wing extremist. It's just like when Isaac Arnsdorf wrote this book about the precinct committeeman strategy, and he claimed that I was an oath keeper.
Hmm.
Well, I'm not a member of the Oath Keepers, but I definitely am keeping my oath of office that I took multiple times over the course of my life to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yes, in that sense, I am an oath keeper, but I am not a member of the Oath Keepers. But one of their headlines said that I was, and then in the body of that's to get clicks, and then in the body it explained what I just explained to you. At least he got that right. But whoever wrote the headline, I think at that time he was writing at, I think, ProPublica, and then he turned it into a book. But I never let him interview me. I never I don't do interviews with the left wingers, but I would if they would come to me and then they'd have to agree that I get to record everything with my cameras of the whole thing because
Mm.
they take things out of context, and that's why I don't do interviews with them.
Yeah, well, yeah, one clip and we know what happens to that. So,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But anyways, so I what happened with me was I knew what the precinct committeeman strategy was because I learned it in seventh grade civics. But I was in the military, and there's not much you can do as a military officer with politics. I mean, you can go to meetings and stuff like that, but I was moving around a lot
mm,
and uh, very busy. And I wrote letters to my congressman and multiple times with my name, rank, serial number, and all of that. So I stayed engaged in the process. Then I moved to Los Angeles after I graduated from law school. And while I was in DC, I also actually got involved with the Libertarian Party
mhm.
because philosophically I'm a libertarian. But then eventually I realized they're just they're just not going anywhere. So I reverted back to being a Republican.
Mhm.
And when I got to Los Angeles, I didn't, Los Angeles, California was conservative. We had had a succession of Republican governors, and I didn't think I needed to get involved in the Republican Party. Uh, so, but I did work on some campaigns. I volunteered for some campaigns for some conservative congressional candidates and assembly candidates and state senate candidates and things like that. So I was involved, but I wasn't involved in the party. Then I moved to Arizona,
Mhm.
and in 2007, things were just getting out of control with illegal immigration. So I
Mhm.
decided I got to do something. So a border militia was forming. And when I say it's a border militia, they were just going to go down to the border, have radios, touch base with the
Mhm.
border patrol and say, hey, we spotted some people, go
Right,
get them, but not that was going to be it.
right. They
So I
weren't.
went to one of their meetings. Yeah. And a guy got up and he said, hey, there's another thing that you can do. He had a nice suit on, black suit, white shirt,
Mm,
black tie, real nice young man. And he said, there's another thing that you can do. You know, Janet Napolitano was our governor then. She's not going to send the National Guard down. But he said, we need to elect a better governor.
mhm.
Maybe we should revitalize the Republican Party here in this state. And there's a way to do it. But the first step is to go find your local legislative district committee. We were in Maricopa County, and go to the meeting. So I went to him. I said, hey, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Well, how do I get in touch with the party? So he said, well, we got a website. Your legislative district might have a website. It was 2007. Well, they had a website, but there was nothing there. And I called and I called and I called, and finally I drove down to the state headquarters, which is in Phoenix, and walked in and I said, I keep calling you. Nobody calls me back. How do I find my legislative district committee? Because it wasn't all splashed all over the internet.
Right.
So they got me connected. Then I went to my first meeting, and there was 20 people there, and 3 or 4 of us were new. And I said, where is everybody? When they got time for us to be introduce ourselves. I said, where after I did that, I said, where is everybody? What do you mean? Well, there's only 20 people
What do you
here. And three or
mean?
four of us are, where is everybody? He goes, well, this is about what we get. And I go, well, this was North Tempe. I lived in Tempe, and South Scottsdale.
Mhm.
I said, so there's 20 people at the meeting, and it was at like a government civic center, with maybe a little library and a place for seniors to meet and stuff like that. Anyways, said, well, this is usually what we get. I go, well, how many do you have? Oh, we have about 40 members. I go, how many slots do you have? Oh, we have 160 slots. So they were at a
This,
25%
I'm
strength,
sorry, sir. This
you
sounds
know?
like Connecticut. And this is the
Yeah,
same.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it blew me away.
Hmm.
So then, Barry Soetoro gets elected to the presidency, And we're at our February meeting after that. And I'm a conservative in the primary, Republican in the general. And I told him that at my first meeting. John McCain, God forbid, gets the nomination. I'll work my tail off to try to get him elected. And I
Mhm.
did. But now Barry Soetoro is the president. Got yeah, communist.
Mhm.
And we're getting ready to close the meeting in February, and everybody's, like freaked out that he got elected. And they said, well, we'll see you in 2 months. And I said, what do you mean
What?
in 2 months?
What?
Yeah, what? And well, we don't, in off election years, we meet every other month. I said, we just elected a communist to the presidency. We should be meeting every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we at least meet monthly? I made a motion that we meet
Hmm.
monthly. It was seconded, voted on. Everybody agreed. Yeah, we
Okay.
should meet monthly. So we did. And then I realized I got to start doing something. So then the Tea Party rose up.
Hmm.
So I'd go to the Tea Party meetings and try to recruit the Tea Partiers. And I recruited a lot of
Hmm.
them, but not enough. And so right now, as you know, all across the country, about half of the slots still in the
Hmm.
Republican Party are vacant. And that's all explained at my website, precinctstrategy.com. I'll do a podcast today, a weekday podcast. But as I told you before I came on with you, I'm to the point where I may just like go dark because I don't know that I'm making any difference. I don't know what it's going to take to motivate Americans. I say sometimes at the end of my podcast, I am supremely confident that the American people can save the republic. I just don't think they're going to. That's the problem.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you are perhaps, and I understand burnout. I know what burnout is. And
Yeah,
I can't afford it. It's like I have to hold that faith. So allow me to pick that up for you, at least in Connecticut.
sure.
So, yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me is when I read your book, some of it was a little frustrating because I couldn't figure out what you were talking about with precincts. And after listening to a podcast,
Hmm.
it was like, oh, they call it something else. Okay, I think,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah,
it.
let me give you an example of that.
Okay.
Somebody in Michigan contacted me once. I
Hmm.
got your book. And then I went to my first meeting and I went in. I said, I want to be a precinct committeeman. They said, well, we don't have precinct committeemen.
Right.
And so I felt foolish, so I left. I
Hmm.
emailed back. I said, I told you, you've got to go to the website and you've got to look at your state information and
Yeah.
try to bone up on what the terminology is. Because in Michigan, precinct committeemen, they were right. They don't have precinct committee men and
Hmm.
or women. They
Right.
have precinct delegates.
Hmm.
That's what it's called, precinct delegate. So they took advantage of your ignorance
Right.
and made you feel foolish to keep you out. So you got to learn the terminology. In
And
some states, there are not
yeah.
voting precincts. They're called voting districts. And in some, Minnesota, they call them basic political operating units, BPOUs. And I like to make fun of Minnesotans because I grew up in Wisconsin. It's right across the river from me. And I said, why use one word when you can use four? That's the thinking of Minnesotans. That's a joke.
That's
But
fine.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Connecticut we have delegates. And so I mean,
And
what
you have town committees, not county
yes,
committees.
yes, we have town committees, and some of that is I'm not even sure what that's all about. It's the frustration here has been first that the rules are opaque. If you
Hmm.
read the rules, it's like, oh, that seems simple, but that clearly isn't how things are actually running.
Hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. Um, the way it's written is opaque. Um, my my town, I tried to contact the person who was in theory running the meeting, tried twice, got nothing. Same experience. And so what you're telling me is that this is not an uncommon experience for Republicans.
Right.
What is, I mean, I've been developing some theories about this, and I think people who are conservative are they want to go have a life. They want to build something that is time consuming.
Right.
And so
Right.
they want to go back to do that thing that lights them up. And politics is, unless you really like talking to people and you don't mind dipping your toe in some dirty water and figuring out how to deal with that. And that's not simple. It's not simple. If you have a moral standard and you want to go be involved in politics, that's tough. That is really difficult. It is, it is a moral hazard. And that's one thing that I got from the libertarians because I was libertarian for 10 years. And, it's like, okay, moral hazard. All right, that makes sense to me. And, so I mean, I love the idea of term limits, but unless we get involved in our politics as a lifestyle, it's like, oh, all right, I'm going to spend some of my free time going to this meeting or going to the school board meeting or whatever it is and being involved. If we don't have that as a lifestyle, and I think that that's just been trained out of us in just this huge way. I mean, I I'm guessing you're about 10 years older than me or so. I don't want to ask anybody's
I'm
age.
69,
All right, yeah, about 10 years.
going on 18.
Aren't we all? But yeah, about 10 years. And certainly when I was in high school, the civics class was unbelievably boring. If you
Hmm.
wanted to keep people from getting involved in anything having to do with local government, that was the class to take. Dear gods, that'd have been any more horrible. I didn't remember any of it. It's like, oh, it's talking about my local town. And I'm like, what do I know about this? Why would I want to even be involved in this? And that was it. That was it for me with politics. What can I do? And then on a national level, we're a big country. So what can we do about that? So there's also that sense of hopelessness about it.
Yeah.
But the other piece is that in Connecticut, we've been beat down by our government. I mean, I think the Communist Party was in here probably starting in the 20s. I'd actually have to study that a little bit.
Hmm.
There's people who have studied this. But every single one of our representatives to Congress has communist ties. Yay. Yeah, and that's documented. That's the Trevor Loudon has done a bunch of work on that. I'd love to have him come on the podcast at some point here. But Connecticut is, but there are a lot
I
of,
know Trevor.
you do. Oh,
Uh,
great.
yeah, I've spoken at events that he's been speaking at as well. But the
Okay.
problem with Trevor is, okay, he never provides this. This is the problem with what I call the conservative grievance industry.
Okay.
They all want to sell books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is never in any of the books is what's in my book.
Right.
What do you propose
To
we
do about it.
do about it?
Yeah.
That part never comes.
Mm. Okay.
And I don't know if it's a psychological thing that prevents it. In some cases, I know it's just that's why I call it the conservative grievance industry
Right.
and these so-called conservative influencers.
Mm.
If you solve the problem, if you give a like Mark Levin has churned out all these books.
Yes.
I don't I don't buy them anymore, but I did look up, I did buy one and I did a search through it. And it
Mm-hmm.
was one that he did. I wrote an article at Breitbart.com when Steve Bannon was the editor there, and he was letting me publish articles. And I said the one chapter that Mark Levin left out of his latest book, which was directed at young conservatives. And it would just, all it did was chronicle all the bad things that are coming down the pike for them. They're never going to be able to buy a house. They're never going to get a good job, and on and on and on. And I said the chapter he left out was, now here's what, and then the last thing he said was to them, so what are you going to do about it? Okay. Well, the chapter he left out was, here's what you need to do about it politically. Get involved. And so he saw my article and read it. And then he contacted Bannon and said, that guy Schultz, he lied. I had everything like that in my book. And so Bannon contacted me and said, hey, Levin says that you were not telling the truth, that
Have you read the thing?
uh,
Has he read the thing?
he's got all that in, right. He's got all that in his book. And I said, he does not have anything in his book. And I read it. And I also did, just to confirm what I had read, I did all sorts of word searches, like search for the word precinct,
Mm-hmm.
strategy,
Mm-hmm.
committeeman, committee woman. I did every kind of search, like county committee. And there's nothing in his book about Republican Party committees. There's nothing in the book about it. So he said, okay, thanks. And he, didn't take the article down.
Right.
We've got to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not doing it. And so, for example, in Connecticut, I would imagine, I don't know this, I don't know that much about Connecticut. I've been there, but briefly only, many years ago. I would imagine there are enough conservatives in Connecticut to flood into your town monthly meetings month after month after month and completely revamp the Republican Party. But nobody's doing it. And then extrapolate that to the nationally. There's the first graphic at my website shows there's 74 million people who voted for Donald Trump.
Mm.
There's 200,000 vacant precinct committee slots out of 400,000.
Wow.
0.3% of 74 million is about 280,000 or something like that.
Right.
We can't even get 0.3% of 74 million Trump supporters to do something meaningful that matters. And he endorsed my strategy. That's at my website 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well,
We got to get
what I'm
people to
thinking,
do something. And so far, what I'm doing isn't working.
Mhm. I'm thinking, well, what I'm hoping is that we have a window now. And we have had 4 years of dear gods. This is, we've had 4 years to see just how awful it can get.
Yeah.
I will say that in Connecticut, we do have a growing movement. We have people who are looking at the voter rolls. We have people who are putting together rallies. This is the step that we really need people to
The,
take.
the place, the place to rally
Hmm.
and the place to do all that election integrity stuff is at your monthly Republican town committee meetings.
That's
You
what we're
take
trying
everybody
to do.
and stack those meetings with people who want the Second Amendment
Right.
to be never, ever, the Bill of Rights cannot be repealed, period.
Hmm.
But you've got to say that over and over. Get all the election integrity people who want to maybe you can go back to paper ballots under the laws in
That's what
Connecticut.
I've
I
been
don't know.
advocating.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
no, we
don't know,
can.
but
We definitely can. We definitely can.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's this
under the
our state
existing law.
constitution.
And take that issue
They use the
into
issue.
your monthly meetings and do it in every town all across Connecticut.
Yep.
And when you say you're having rallies, forget the rallies. The place to rally,
Hmm.
unless you're going to use them to recruit precinct committee, the place to rally once a month is at your local Republican Party committee meetings.
Mm.
Take people with you to those meetings as your guests who are
Right.
conservative. Let them see, hey, we could really outnumber the rhinos who are running our meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we've got enough warm bodies, and we've got enough warm bodies to do hand counts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Right.
There's already an organizational structure that exists for us. It's called
Mm-hmm.
the Republican Party. I came on Bannon's War Room. It's in Arnsdorf's book. Bannon, maybe my third appearance in 2021. So, Dan, what organization should I say that you're with? And I started laughing. And I said, Steve, I go, my organization is the Republican Party.
Mm.
That's my organization. I'm not creating some separate organization. The organization I want to populate with conservatives is the Republican Party. That's there for the taking by conservatives if we can get enough of them to come into the party like I have.
So talk to me, and I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, but I would like to hear it from you. There's a lot of talk about third parties. You were part of the Libertarian Party for a while. Tell me about why third parties aren't that useful.
Well, I have a whole bunch of maxims that I've come up with, political maxims, and I'm planning on writing another book. Um, and I'm going to put a chapter in there about my maxims. And I used to go by Cold Warrior when I wrote at redstate.com because I was doing it anonymously because I was working for a big client that if they would have found out that I was a conservative Republican and writing about what I was writing about, I would have been fired. So I just used Cold Warrior. So Cold Warrior's maxims, and one of them is this: you don't unite by dividing. By going off and forming like the America Party, or I think it's called the America Party or American Party, or
It's the
going and
America
joining
Party,
the
whatever.
Libertarian Party or the Constitution Party or whatever party you want to. You're dividing yourselves into a little thing, a little small little thing, and you're hurting the main vehicle to defeat the left. The main vehicle to defeat the left is the Republican Party. Period. It's the biggest thing we got going. And then if you're going to, I asked Brock this question: what makes more sense for somebody like Elon Musk who wants to start a third party? Populating the vacancies in the Republican Party via the precinct committeeman strategy, or going off and starting a third party? And Grok agreed with me, hands down. It's much easier to take over the Republican Party. The apparatus is already there. The meeting rooms are already there. The cohorts are already there. You know, Musk and Trump are not that far away on the issues. And so, but if you go start a new party, you got to get ballot access. That takes signatures. That's expensive as hell. And, you know, on and on and on. People don't necessarily like new parties. They're comfortable with the two-party system that we have. Take all your energy and time and money and put it into the Republican Party apparatus and start with your voting precinct. Don't send money to the RNC. I don't.
Okay.
I invest everything right here where I am now. I'm in Buffalo County, Wisconsin. I live in a ward. It's my ward. And I go to the monthly meetings. And what do we talk about when we're there? How are we going to recruit more people to come into the party? How are we going to do that? We kick those ideas around. And then how are we going to teach all the people who come into the party to become poll observers, poll workers, get out the vote people? Like, so what I did when I moved here in 2024, I got involved with the party, local party. And then I realized the best thing that I could do to help Trump get reelected was to do TrumpForce47.com. And I took some training with them. They were using Campaign Sidekick. So I'd go fishing and I'd have my earbud in, and Campaign Sidekick would automatically dial people. And then while I'm fishing, I would talk to them about, hey, you got to go vote. Please go vote. You know, I'm Dan Schultz from Buffalo County. Okay. And then I became a poll observer. Totally different here. In Arizona, where I was, to be a poll observer, you had to get a signature from your county chair. And if you're doing it in a different county, you had to have the signature of that county chair. And then they trained you, you know, as well. And I took the training for here in Wisconsin. And then guess what? Here in Wisconsin, anybody can be a poll observer.
Okay.
You don't have to take any training. All you have to do is walk into a polling place and say, I want to be an observer today. And they have to let you sit in a chair, and they put a sign on you, observer. You can't talk to anybody, but you can watch. Oh, you can talk to the officials if you think they're not doing something right, but you can't talk to the voters. And so I did that. And start with your voting precinct, and then build out an army like I did in my precinct back in, and I'm trying to do here as well. But it's very red here. It's like 65%. Trump got 65% of the vote in my county. But still, we want to boost turnout in the
And you
presidential
can't
elections
take that for
so
granted.
that he wins the state, and he won it narrowly. So what we were doing here helped, you
Yes.
know, overall. And so that we got to start, you got to start local, and then get involved in Connecticut in your town committee and try to become a state committeeman, if that's what they're called. Go to the state meetings, and maybe you have other committees, but you got to learn the ropes. You got to read and study the bylaws. You got to learn the basics of Robert's Rules of Order. You don't have to become an expert. There will be people who want to be experts in Robert's Rules who are conservatives. Get to know those people. And then what we have at precinctstrategy.com is an online communications and collaboration platform that's really easy to use that my friend Robert Beadle's built for us for free. And you can go on there and you can set up Connecticut chat rooms. There's a default chat room. I don't know how many people are on it. I could look it up now very easily, very quickly. I don't know how many, don't remember how many Connecticut people are on it, but I know there are lots of conservatives doing great things in Connecticut, but you got to grow your numbers
Yes.
as fast as possible.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we're up to. And
Yeah.
what was I going to say? My frustration. Yeah, you were talking about, how you've got a 65%, um, dominance in your county. And
Yeah,
what,
we're lucky here.
yeah, well, and the thing is, I wanted to say, don't take that for granted ever.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
I
And
get
that's what, and they're
very,
not.
yeah, and I get very,
Yeah, I've
very
been to three
frustrated.
meetings or maybe four now, and I went to the Wisconsin convention and took Robert's Rules of Order training on the Friday before it started. I couldn't be a delegate because I hadn't been a voting member.
Um,
I hadn't been a dues paying member for a year yet. So I couldn't go there as a delegate. I could have volunteered, but I couldn't have voted because I wasn't a member yet. But now I'm a member of the board. And again, like I said, all we talk about at our meetings, each one of the meetings I've been to, is how do we recruit more people? And we try to go into the parades, and we try to go like there's going to be a county fair at the end of, or no, the early part of this coming August. We're going to have a booth there. I'm going to go up and man that booth and talk to people and say, hey, listen, we need you in the party. We don't have enough people in the party. We need more people in the party, just like we're talking.
yeah.
Um, and and register more Republicans. That's what we've got to do.
That's what we do have somebody who's working on that. She sent up a branch of, early, Scott Pressler's organization there. So she's got a Connecticut branch. And I've sat
Yeah.
at those tables a couple of times. I was going to say that I get really frustrated when people talk about, oh, just move out of blue states and go, it's like, here's my problem with it.
Right. I agree.
There are what is it was this representative in Florida who is trying to soft pedal the immigration thing. She's come up with this thing to like let's get some of these people to be citizens. I was like, she's a Republican. And just because you've gone to a red state doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of people there who are serving something that isn't human. I'm sorry. I refer to the people who are leading the negative charge here as unhumans. And there are people who are
Yeah.
prepared to serve that. And just because you left, it's like, oh, I left all of that uncomfortableness and the high taxation. I just left that all behind. Well, yay you, because obviously it happened because we weren't paying attention. I'm including myself in this. I only got involved in politics
Yeah.
in January. That was it. Well, I tried in October, but they didn't get back to me. So now I had to go do something else. I've had to figure it out. It's like walking through fog,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what to do because there just hasn't been any answer. So now we have an idea of what to do, and it's taken this long to get there. But if you just walk away from it, how do you know it's not going to just chase you? It's not like these people just sit around and go, "Oh, we're just gonna like they're just gonna wait for, Republicans to go to sleep because apparently that's what we do."
Yeah.
So, sorry, I got a little frustrated. Um,
That's okay. Yeah. I do too.
yeah, so it sounds like let me sort of see if I'm going to walk through your precinct strategy thing, and you tell me if I get anything wrong here.
Okay.
Um, so
Okay.
so what we need to do is we need to start showing up at our meetings, bring as many people as we possibly can. Um, get ourselves voted into membership because in Connecticut, and I don't know, this is something I learned fairly recently, is you have to, in Connecticut, they have to vote you in as a committee member. So you can show up, but you have to be voted in.
Yeah, you have to, if you, in every state, there is a time when you get elected, either at a private caucus meeting. I can't remember if Connecticut has private caucus meetings or if you run on the ballot, the
Oh, no,
primary
this is
ballot.
different. This is to be a member of the RTC. They have to vote you in. So
Um,
before you can vote for anybody.
well, I'm not sure that that's correct.
Oh, no, it is correct.
I believe in every state, there comes a time, either every 2 years or every 4 years, where you show up. Let's say you're a caucus state where you go to a town caucus and
Okay.
they're for each individual precinct, maybe you're at all what are called at-large members.
Mhm,
Everybody in the town. If you show up and you're a bona fide Republican,
mhm.
and there's your bylaws say, well, we can only have per statute maybe uh, 50 slots, but 55 show up to become, then you have to get, somebody has to elect you. And who's going to elect you? The 55 who show up are going to elect 50. The top vote getters will become the precinct committee. Then if someone, the 50, if that's the max number you can have, then if someone leaves, then there's an appointment process usually where either the town chairman or the body itself can vote into the vacancy someone who volunteers and wants to do it. And if there's 2 or 3 people waiting in the wings and they all want to be it, the top vote getter will become a member.
Mhm.
That's the way it works just about everywhere. But see, here's the thing. I tell everybody, does I have step-by-step directions on my website.
Mhm.
How to find your local committee, what to do and what to say when you get there, what to not do and what not to say, and even what not to wear. Do not wear your Trump gear because you're walking into maybe a hornet's nest of rhinos.
Mhm.
Well, one of the things you should ask for is after you say, I'm a good Republican and I'm here to elect more Republicans and I want to volunteer to fill
Mhm.
a vacant precinct committeeman slot if one exists, or precinct delegate or whatever it's called. May I please have a copy of the bylaws of this committee? And may I also have a copy of whatever precinct delegate handbook that you might have so I can learn the ropes?
Okay.
And if there isn't a Connecticut Republican Party precinct delegate handbook, then what you do is you get all the bylaws and you write one for yourself. Like, so that, because like Wisconsin doesn't have one,
Mhm.
but 2 years ago, I got together with a county chair north of me and who invited me up to speak at he had a Second Amendment thing going on. So I had a booth, I was selling my books. And then I kept asking him, so how does it work in Wisconsin? How does it work? How does it work? What's the first step? And so over the phone, I wrote down everything step by step, how it works. And I created a 2-page, basically a
Mhm.
precinct committeeman handbook for the state of Wisconsin, a generic one of how it works. And then I looked at the constitution of the Republican Party of Wisconsin.
Mhm.
That's what the bylaws are called in Wisconsin. See, the terminology varies from state to state.
Right.
Arizona calls bylaws bylaws. In Wisconsin, bylaws are called constitutions. And then some states have, like Florida, rules of procedure too. So
Okay.
you,
Right.
you can you can
Right.
you can gauge how corrupt a Republican Party is in a state by how many documents that they have that are procedural and require you to do this, that, and the other thing. Like in Florida, you to be all, and then are you voted in every 2 years or every 4 years? Florida, it's every 4 years. That's a mark.
Okay.
Corrupt state.
Okay.
It should be every 2 years so you can
Well,
have turnover.
Connecticut is it's
And then
bylaws
yeah, yeah.
and it is every 2 years.
Yeah,
So
so you got to learn all of this stuff, and if they don't have a handbook, you got to write one. So I wrote one for
All right.
Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then on the communications and collaboration platform that we have, there's a default Wisconsin chat room. And
Mhm.
so I uploaded that document into the default Wisconsin chat room. So others in the state, there's about, I don't know, 280 people on the platform who are in Wisconsin. There's three in my county. And of course, you got to use your real name so people can find you. Two of them, they use a pseudonym. I don't know who they are, and I've tried to reach out to them. They haven't replied. But my goal is to get every conservative Republican in the country who either wants to be a PC or has become a PC to get on this platform and then start sharing
Mhm.
data and ideas and documents like ban the jab resolutions.
Mhm.
My friend Joe Sansone got one passed in his county in Florida about a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And he told me about it. I got a copy of it. I set up a chat room on the platform, ban the jab resolutions.
Mhm.
And then I took it and rewrote it for Arizona because I was still a precinct committeeman in Arizona. And I got my legislative district committee to approve it, the resolution. Then we got the Maricopa County Republican Committee to approve it. And then we got the state committee to approve it at their annual meeting. And then Idaho passed one, and other states. Maybe I know Joe knows some good people in Connecticut. Maybe there's some local committees that have passed ban the jab resolution, basically calling on your governor and your state legislature
Mhm.
and if you have a surgeon general position, some states do, Florida does, some states don't, to call on the legislature and the governor to enact a law banning the mRNA bioterrorism weapon. Now imagine if we had every committee of the Republican Party at the low level and maybe some of the state committees calling for their state legislatures to do that. Or more recently, with respect to these Epstein files, everybody's complaining about Trump, saying poo-pooing the Epstein files. Well, what if every committee in the country, local committee, passed a resolution calling on Donald Trump to order the release of all of the Epstein files?
Mhm.
That might get his attention. But just squawking about it on Twitter
Right.
and other social media, TikTok, whatever,
Right.
that's just noise.
Yes, I agree.
But if we unite, look, I have a mantra for the precinct committee strategy. Trump supporters have to get organized and united politically where they live in the best place, the best time, in the best way possible. And for two reasons. One, to change the party from within. It's the only way to change the party is by getting into it. And then secondly, you're in the best position to get out the vote in those all important, traditionally very low turnout, 20% or so primary elections to retire the fake Republicans who are incumbents.
Mhm.
And where is that best time, place, and manner for doing that? It's at your respective local committee meeting at the lowest level. You got to go to those meetings and learn how to populate the party with more conservatives. And then you're in the best position to get out the vote to defeat the incumbent rhinos who pretend to be Republicans but are really Democrats or worse.
Right.
That's the mantra.
Okay. So once you get, um, so I'm just thinking about how I'm going to do this in my town, in just
Mm-hmm.
my town, because we're slowly collecting people who are going to their committee meetings because we do have people doing that. There are some good conservative towns in Connecticut, some that have been consistently conservative for, decades. And
Yeah.
we're using those as a model and seeing, okay, what are they doing right? So that if we want to try and pull people in, we also have a nice, I think the religion thing is actually going to be very helpful because there is a growing religious movement. I made note of this, a year ago. And I give Jordan Peterson some credit for that because he's been taking mythology and stories from the Bible and interpreting them in a way that is useful for modern people, which I think has been, I think that's been one of the failings in Christianity, is that it's not spoken to people, modern problems and, addressed the scientific issues. And that's a problem. And he's speaking to packed stadiums.
Hmm.
He's filling stadiums with people who are coming in, dressed like they're going out to dinner, and
Yeah.
couples holding hands. It's very sweet, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's going to be very beneficial. One of the people we interviewed in the podcast, oh, it was probably about a month ago, was Pastor Jake Dell. And he's leading a movement in Connecticut to revivify the churches here. And he had a small congregation. He's starting to build that. He's got young people coming in. He's been talking to other pastors. And our interview with him was about how just because you're running a church doesn't mean you can't talk politics. And,
Right.
he's perfectly reasonable legal arguments about it. And he's on it. And so I intend
Yeah.
to lean on him to help with this when we get, yeah, okay, great, fantastic.
Are you familiar with this book?
I am not. I am not. So,
Well, it's written by John Galvin, a West Pointer like me, but
okay.
he had a better career in the military than I did. He became NATO Supreme Allied Commander.
Wow.
But he was born near Lexington and Concord.
Okay.
And so after he retired from the military, he wrote a book, The
Hmm.
Minutemen, The First Fight, Myths and Realities of the American Revolution. And he's got right here, clergy. He talks about the local pastors who were militia commanders, many of them,
Wow.
who
Okay.
would speak to the their pulpits to their congregants. You got to get involved to fight these awful redcoats,
Hmm.
minions, and bureaucrats of the king.
Yes.
And then once a month in some of the small towns in Massachusetts, they would and others of the colonies, they do their drill. They go to church and then they assemble on the town green
Right.
and do their militia drill and make sure everybody had a working flintlock and enough ball and enough powder and enough swabs and rods and everything, and knew how to assemble and march together if they needed to go somewhere. Um, Terrific book. And see, that's good that you're going into the churches. We've got to go into the churches. I know a guy in Nevada who stood up during the COVID crisis and said, I'm not closing down my church. And I believe they arrested him. And I can't remember. Joe Morales is his name. And I don't remember what city he was in. And he sued them and won and never shut down his church. and um, and then he's trying to, with my help, find pastors who are willing to talk from the pulpit or maybe off in a side room
Hmm.
after the service about getting involved in politics for
Hmm.
your family and because it's like this turn the other cheek thing
Right.
that the Christians talk about, which is not what Jesus said at all.
No.
When he sent out the apostles, he says buy a sword when
Hmm.
you go because you're going to need it. You know, um, we've got to revitalize the churches. Go to the Second Amendment groups, the gun groups. Go to Right to Life groups. I've
Hmm.
got the second graphic at my site shows all these groups, like the Tea Partiers. Why didn't the Tea Party leaders recruit precinct committee? Because I told
Oh,
them about the
no, but I'm going to
leaders.
have one of
I'll
the.
tell you why. I'll tell you why they did it. Because then they're not out in front of the parade.
Hmm.
They want to have their own little group and raise money. Jenny Beth Martin makes $1 million a year.
Um,
She makes $500,000 a year from the Tea Party Patriots and $500,000 a year from Tea Party Patriot PAC. Well, wait, I take that back. She only makes $500,000 a year. And you can look it up. I mean, it's all reported. The PAC monies are reported through the FEC and through her PAC, and then the IRS keeps tabs on all the charities, the 501 charities.
God.
And if I've looked at the documents, she makes $250,000 a year from each of them. And what has she accomplished? Nothing. Nothing politically, other than standing, like when she would stand on the outside the Capitol, having her little rally with a microphone. Congress, can you hear us now? Yeah, they can hear you, and they don't care about what you're doing. They're laughing at you because you're not doing politics. Squawking and squawking and squawking isn't going to change anything. I talked about it on my podcast yesterday or the day before, 2 days ago. I listed all the things that people think is going to change things politically, and it won't. There's only one thing that's going to change things politically, and that is to keep the incumbent rhinos from getting reelected. It's not through tweets. It's not through saying on social media, we're going to primary you. It's not through reading more books. It's not through listening to talk radio, more Fox News, all of that stuff. None of that stuff is going to do anything. Educating yourself more about issues isn't going to help. What you've got to do is we got to recognize the issues are really bad and need to get fixed. How do we fix them? We elect better people. That's what I learned in 7th grade civics. Our teacher told us at the end of the class, the first semester. I had 2 teachers. The first guy at the end of our first semester, after he told us how the parties work, both in Wisconsin and generally, he told us, listen, I've equipped you now. When you become 21, back then, this is 1968, 1969. Voting age was 21. It got lowered when I was in high school. When you get to be 21, if the country's in a world of hurt, and it wasn't a world of hurt in 68 and 69, summer of love. There were riots all over. The Vietnam War was going, inflation, on and on and on. He told us, I've equipped you now what to do. The reason that the republic is in bad shape, if it is at the time you become 21, is because we've allowed these bad people to run the government at the state level, the county level, and the national level. And there's a way to fix that. Every 2 years, for example, under the Constitution, as I taught you, every member of the House of Representatives can be retired, and 1/3 of the senators. And so, like I like to say now, the precinct committeeman strategy is the we the people strategy that's outlined in the preamble to the Constitution and the Constitution itself. And unfortunately, though, we're not doing it. So he told us, pick the political party of your choice that can get rid of the people you think are doing bad stuff and throw them out peacefully via the ballot box. But when we have 20% turnout in Republican primaries, that's never going to happen. I asked Grok too. I knew what the answer was going to be, but I asked Grok to see if Grok would get it right. The re-election rate in primaries of members of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate is 96% plus. And then when they go on to their general, it's 96% plus. So if we don't get rid of the uniparty, nothing's going to change fundamentally. Right. And it's got to happen in 2026, or you might as well say goodbye to life as you know it, because if you think it's going to get better, it is going to get worse, much worse, very quickly.
Yeah, we all know it here, at least those of us that I'm working with.
Yeah. So knowing that and saying that, I mean, millions of people have heard me say that. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't anybody do anything? Which is a 3-hour a month commitment to go to your local Republican Party committee once a month. That's a 3-hour commitment, thereabouts, depending on how far you got to drive. 3 hours a month. People won't even do that. And I can't explain it.
Well, I'm still looking, and I have been able to pull some people in to some of what we're doing. We've been able to slowly get volunteers, and that's I'm interested in psychology. So that's what's interested. Well, I'm interested in what motivates people. So if
Yeah,
I find something that works, I will share it with you. So
great.
that's it's this is yeah, because we don't really have a choice if we want our lives to be decent. And
Yeah,
I appreciate it's like I appreciate what you were saying about um that there's Republicans out there who are just what was it you said? The ones that are doing used a term. They're doing it for the money. Sorry. I lose my mind.
oh, well, the conservative influencers.
Yes,
The conservative influence, you know what the influencers do? They influence people to buy the products of their
right,
sponsors.
right.
That's it. They will, it is antithetical to their success in selling more
Solve a
product to
problem.
tell people
Yep,
what to do. Because if you
right.
tell them what to do, guess what they'll do?
They'll do it. They'll do it.
They'll do it and they'll stop listening. Because,
Mhm.
oh, I have an epiphany. I have to do something politically. And then they don't watch that stuff anymore. See, I figured this out a long time ago. I don't watch those Sunday morning political shows. I'm not going to learn anything there.
Yeah.
I don't I don't Rush Limbaugh, Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, I would listen to Limbaugh once in a while, but he by contract couldn't talk about how to change the Republican Party. In fact, he even said, I'm not a member of the party.
Hmm.
I don't go to those meetings. And
Mm.
if you ever got through the screener, and some callers did get through the screeners occasionally, and they started to talk about it, the first thing he would do is this. Um, Sorry, I'm on a hard break. I got to go to a commercial. Boom, you're gone. A
Great.
friend of mine in Glendale,
Others.
California, she became a friend of mine. She got in one time, and it was Susan from Glendale, and she ended up getting involved in the Republican Party because we became friends. She was a child actress, um, and she was a brand new mother. She was an attorney. Her husband was an attorney, but she had become a stay-at-home mom. She calls in, and it was like when Obamacare was on its way to getting passed, and she was distraught. And he let her go over the break a second, so I
Mm.
went to the break and brought her back on. And then she says, but Rush, what am, and she went through all the problems under Obama and the coming Obamacare. What, what can I do? And he said, well, Susan, you just did it. You listened to my
Done
show and came on
here.
as a caller.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so that's what we have to do. We have to listen to Rush Limbaugh, and
So
then everything will
we've
be
all
cool.
been, this is the brainwashing goes, it's not just, it's like, oh, if we just talk, everything will be fine. It's like, no. And yeah, okay. So this is reassuring to me in some ways because that has been my personal message to people is get out and do things. And so, trying to be a model in order to do that. And so this is the next step, and this will be good. This will be a good
Yeah,
thing.
if every single conservative precinct committeeman, and my estimate is there's about 100,000,
Hmm.
and there's 100,000 lineups, and there's 200,000 vacancies. The first slide at precinctstrategy.com. If every single conservative would commit to recruiting two more
Hmm.
conservatives, no matter where they lived,
Right.
we'd get this solved. But
Hmm.
nobody recruits.
Okay. So
And
recruiting is the
we
thing.
all, the paramount, number one, numero uno. I've talked to other, I've been on I've talked to local committees all across the country. And what do you want to talk about, Dan? And when you come on, I said, I'm going to talk about one thing and one thing only. Paramount, numero uno, bar none, the thing that you have to do. And then I always ask them too beforehand, how many slots do you have and how many are filled? And it's always less than 50% are filled.
Mhm.
So you've got to fill those other slots. Every single one of you has to become a recruiting machine. Usually I'm just talking to the conservatives, not the rhinos too. God forbid the rhinos figure this out.
Right. Yes. And that is the thing because we have I believe all of our precinct slots in Connecticut are full, but they're not full of conservatives.
Yeah, right.
So that's, so it's like we have a lot of, and this is probably why we have a lot of empty state representative seats. Like we have about 40 uncontested seats in Connecticut in this, for the state legislature. And that's
Oh, okay.
probably why. It's like we've got plenty of rhinos in the GOP, but we don't have, but then they're not putting up any real candidates. And
Right.
also, I do have another question for you. So when you were in Arizona and now that you're in Wisconsin, does your state party have a platform that is for your state? Or does it just go by the national, because national doesn't necessarily mean what you need to do in the state?
In the past, Arizona had a platform.
Hmm.
And then when Trump got elected, they decided to jettison the platform and say, we're going to adopt the national committee's platform as our platform.
Okay.
In Wisconsin, I haven't looked into it whether they've done the same thing or not.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Platforms are important, but usually they're very conservative. Um, and yeah, so you should definitely look. And then what you should do is look to see whether the Connecticut Republican State Committee website has a downloadable version of the platform. I know I looked to
They
see
don't
what
they
it
don't
is.
have a specific state platform. I've already talked to
Yeah,
the
they may not. They may not.
That's not. It's like it
So
just
if that's the
works
case, then they're
national.
supposed to like
Right.
pay attention to they're usually way too long, the platforms.
Hmm.
Nobody
What would you
reads
say is
them
a
as
good
a
length?
result.
What would you
What's
say?
that?
Well, you said they're often way too long. What do you think is
Well, I would have 10 main things on one page. That's what I would have.
because the national platform has, I think, 20 points on it. And
Yeah, it's way too long. And the one that it's at least it's shorter than the prior. The one was like a book.
okay.
And it should be, I like the charts and you could find them online because see, I'm going up to Buffalo County Fair, like I said, in early August, and I'm gonna man the our Republican Party of Buffalo County booth there. And I'm working with a woman and trying to come up with ideas for flyers to hand out. And they said, well, there's plenty of them online that you can find that shows what Republicans stand for and what Democrats stand for, like 10 or 15 points.
Hmm.
And that's what we need to do. We need to show starkly that the Democrat Party, I mean, most people, 80% of people don't vote, Republicans don't vote in the primary. Why? Because they hate politics.
Mm.
They're too busy being Americans. And as long as they're not being, having somebody like a soldier quartered in their house, which was happening during pre-revolutionary time in this country,
Why we have
or
McDonald's.
having exorbitant taxes and the Stamp Act, the tax on tea that caused the Tea Party in Boston Harbor. Those were tiny, small taxes. If we Americans would look very carefully at how much we pay in taxes, we get taxed on everything. And our tax rate
Multiple
is
times.
about 50% or more. We're essentially living under socialism. Yeah, and multiple times. And so what are we going to do about it? Well, so far, nobody's doing anything about it. We don't even vote.
We need to change the culture. And
Yeah,
like, yeah, the culture needs to change. That's just kind of what it comes down to. Because
yeah,
otherwise, yeah, humans are going to take us over. So, and they would really like to.
yeah.
Um, so, um, I'm sure that there are other things that I would like to ask you, and they've gone out of my head. Is there anything you'd like to add before we call it a day?
Let's see. How much time do I have?
As much as you want.
Okay.
We're not,
So
we're not, we're not on a
I'll
tight
just
schedule.
I'll just say what I say at the end of every one of my podcasts. And I haven't done mine yet today, but I will. I record them and then they air at 6 p.m. Eastern on rumble.com, on Getter, on the Creative Destruction Media streaming page, and then also on pilled.net, pill.net. And what I say at the end of every one of my podcasts is essentially this. Can I guarantee that if we were to fill up all the vacant precinct committeeman slots of the Republican Party, half of which on average everywhere are vacant, can I guarantee that we're going to save the Republic? No, I can't, because I don't have a good enough crystal ball for that. I don't know. The people that we recruit, they might not do anything, or some other crazy thing might happen, or things happen that, oh my God, like it just, we won't be able to prevail at the elections. So I can't guarantee it, but I can guarantee the flip side of that coin easy. If we don't first take over the Republican Party so that we can change the party from within and elect real Republicans via those 80%, not 80%, the 20% turnouts, 80% of Republicans don't vote in the primaries. If we don't first take over the Republican Party and have the troops and educate them to get out the vote for the best candidates in those all-important primaries, then I guarantee you we're going to lose the Republic, because the uniparty will not change. And central bank digital currency will be ushered in. Trump will get impeached or worse, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that Trump is trying to undo are going to be undone and unraveled again. And we're going to lose the Republic. I guarantee it. So it's not looking good for us, in my opinion. And then the last thing is, does anybody have a better strategy than the common sense, we the people strategy outlined in the preamble of the Constitution and the Constitution itself, which says we have the power to elect people who will swear on the Bible that they will only vote for constitutional laws. And they will strive to do that and guarantee us a Republican form of government, and everything else that the Constitution constrains them to not be able to do. Is there a better strategy for saving the Republic? If there is, I want to know what it is, but I don't think there is one. And I've said that for 2 years now, every weekday at the end of my podcast. So I know how many people have watched it on all these different platforms. I have yet to have anybody send me a better strategy, because I don't think there is one. So if we know what the best strategy is, why aren't we implementing it? That's the conundrum.
All right. Well, let's see if we can make you happier in Connecticut.
Yes, right.
I would like to see Connecticut be a model for what the rest of the country could be. That's my goal
Yeah.
and my
And
responsibility.
it's funny in Zoom, when I put my hand up, then the hand goes up on my screen.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Oh, you know what? There was one more thing I wanted
Yeah.
to, there was, so in terms of getting people in to groups successfully, I'm going to tell you what one of our towns is doing, and it's very simple. Every time they have a new Republican sign up, they sent them a welcome letter. They now have a waiting
Yeah.
list for people to be members. So simple. This is okay. Here's one strategy that works. There you go. So please feel.
Yeah. There's another strategy that I did in my precinct right after the 2020 election, when Trump lost, quote unquote. I drove through my precinct and I jotted down the street address of every house that had a Trump sign or
Mhm.
any sign for any Republican candidate, or was flying a flag, anything like that. And then what we did is we divided that up into we had 10 precinct committeemen, so we gave 1/10 to each, as geographically as we could, to
Mhm.
contact those people and just like drop a flyer off at their door. Most people won't come to the door.
Right.
even if you ring the doorbell or knock. The dog will bark, and you can hear the kids, and nobody's going to come to the door. That's just the way it is these days. That's okay. But we dropped off a flyer and then invited them to come to our next meeting, and gave all the names and phone numbers and email addresses of the precinct committeemen. Say, call any one of us and we'll get you to the meeting. The other thing that you can do is have dinner parties. Get all your conservative friends together who live near you and say, let's throw a party for our respective conservative friends.
Mhm.
A dinner party. Hey, just come to the dinner party. That's it. And then once you get them there and you've had dinner and they've
Mhm.
had a couple of drinks at the end, you then say, okay, we had an ulterior motive. For 5 minutes, we're going to tell you what we do politically. Take it or leave it. But just listen to us for 5 minutes, and then you explain the precinct committeeman strategy and how it works in Connecticut. Say,
Mhm.
we're doing it. We need more people. We would like to recruit you to do it. That's it. And then if you're interested, let us know. And so that works. My fellow precinct committeeman did it while I was here in 2023 for the summer. They did it while I was visiting here, and they had like 14 guests, and about 8 said, yeah, I want to do it. And they had the sign up form to do it in Maricopa County. And then of the 8, 2 of them also knew somebody else. So they netted like 10 precinct committeemen. They didn't all live in our precinct.
Mhm.
They lived elsewhere as well. And that's another way to do it, you know, and then build a network and,
Support there. This is
get
important.
all of your conservatives to get to know one another, and
I think if we make it fun, I think that's one of the
yeah,
things that matters.
right,
Like,
right.
have some social time. Make
Yeah,
make it a place to hang out. I mean, one of the things that I enjoy about rallies is just being around people that I can just talk with
right,
having to feel like I'm choking off my free speech so that I won't,
right.
so that somebody isn't going to like run away screaming. Because, I've lost friends and family members over this stuff, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
horrible. So. So, Dan, it's been a pleasure today. It really has. And I hope that we will have something to report for you soon.
Well, thanks for having me, and it was a great discussion, and onward and upward.
Excellent. And would you please, so precinctstrategy.com?
Precinctstrategy.com is the place to go.
Okay, then
And then once you get there, it's the rest is up to each individual who goes there. I
it's our
can't hold everybody's
responsibility,
hand. It's not hard. This is seventh grader stuff.
right?
It's a seventh grade stuff.
Yeah. This is
And
our
so we got to do it.
responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Our civic duty and responsibility. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, sir.
Okay.
Great to meet you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yep. Same here. Yep. Bye.